I am Captain Logan, and this is day 272 of Spawn Year. When you're reading a series that so often introduces ideas without paying them off and leaves loose ends forever untied constantly, you end up scrutinizing everything and trusting nothing. Scratching my head and never resolving a lingering itch has become routine. So I'm especially surprised by the sheer amount of questions finally answered this issue. We learn exactly what Mammon wants and just how far back his machinations go. We've known he was there manipulating events well before issue 100, but I never expected a singular concrete goal he's been working toward the whole time, nor did I expect so many apparent non sequiturs to finally fit together. I don't think it all works. The thing with the Paradise box Cog needed just to distract Spawn away from Bulgy's crown for 5 seconds is still ultra silly, but now I know why Mammon wanted Cog on the throne of hell in the first place, and finally why Spawn is so important to him. Mammon has a great speech about patience and how real vision requires time, and using those seemingly weak and mundane playing pieces to your advantage. Evil strategist villains are always describing their brilliant plots as a chess game. It's a cliche by now. But Mammon has his own spin on it that thoughtfully connects up with the Spawn mythos going all the way back, as Spawn has often been referred to as Hell's pawn. We're finally seeing the reality of that in a way we never did with the aimless, convoluted plots of Malebolgia. Mammon says, why is it beginners never understand the value of the humble pawn? Novices are much more dazzled by the showier pieces, like queens and knights and bishops. They lack vision and patience, but pawns can be quite important. They can be the key to victory. Of course, to get through those dozens and dozens of issues and finally discover this was actually all going somewhere and is mostly pretty well thought out intrigue and manipulation takes an equal amount of patience, and it's too bad this wasn't the story from the beginning, with Mammon behind the scenes out the gate. Bulgy could have been a red herring or even replaced by Mammon, Spawn's mysterious, scheming nemesis from the very beginning. It's bad form to rewrite narrative and a critique, but so much of the first 70 issues have been reworked, dropped, or retconned that it really feels like it's just now gaining some real positive momentum. I could see reading 50 or 60 issues and then discovering all these seemingly disconnected events are interconnected by an evil master plan, and with Mammon's frequent appearances, Hogwin has been promising it's all going somewhere, but not 144 issues. This was published in 2005. Readers who have been with us since the beginning have been patiently waiting 13 years for Spawn's prophesied role in the Celestial War to be revealed, and we're only getting back to all that now. So Spawn defeats Redeemer, saying heaven doesn't care any more about you than it does me, as if that has anything to do with what the fight was actually about. Although I wondered if Eddie's thirst for vengeance isn't as much about Spawn's role in his father's death, the reason he was looking for Spawn and got recruited by Heaven in the first place, as it is about what happened in Hell when Eddie says, "Forgive me, Father, I was weak and I failed you." Is he talking to God or to his Earth Father? His loyalty is divided between the promise he made to Heaven and the people he cares about, just as Spawn's was when he made the deal with Malebolgia. I like the ambiguity of that line. I think there's credibility to either reading. Redeemer loses his fancy suit and turns human again, so apparently this wasn't a fight to the death after all, and Mammon takes the opportunity to pop in and explain everything. And why not gloat? He finally has what he wanted, and he's been waiting for this moment for like 60 issues. First, he tells Spawn to leave Redeemer alone. He served his purpose. Yeah, Mammon, you played everybody else like he is on a piano, but now you're just making stuff up. How could you have possibly known Heaven was going to recruit another Redeemer, that he'd get trapped in hell when you got Cagliostro there, so he could help Nyx find Thea so she'd fulfill her end of the bargain, not knowing you were the tiny flag demon, and give you her connection to Spawn? And she didn't even need Redeemer to find Thea. She used his sword to send Thea's soul to oblivion, yeah, but that didn't have to happen to finish the deal, except she needed to bring some other soul out, since the agreement was for her and one other, and there were no more corporeal souls to bring back. Alright, fine, he was necessary to the plan. But Maman, don't pretend like Redeemer was your idea. You got lucky there. And now that I'm thinking about it, there are other pieces to this plot that make it seem unbelievably elaborate. I didn't realize it before, but it occurred to me reading this and putting it all together that Thea was that mysterious girl we knew nothing about who Maman made another deal with that ultimately led her to her doom. Okay, so did he know that her friend Nyx was gonna meet Spawn, reunite with a symbiote, and bind that symbiote to her power so he could trick her into a foolish quest to rescue Thea and get that power from him? And if she had agreed to trade Spawn for Thea, what would he have done then when what he actually wanted was her bond with Spawn? How could even Maman, unless he sees the future, and we're not told that he does, see that far ahead? As I said, more of this adds up than I thought it would, namely why Clown shut down his Twisted Carnival after Spawn entered his coma. The more I think about it, Hogman's playing it up like Maman intended for everything to play out exactly as it does from the very beginning. And there's just no way he could be sure every person would react in exactly the way he needed them to in order to achieve his endgame. Surely he would have come up with some slightly simpler way to get Spawn where he wanted him. Anyway, the big, totally satisfying revelation is that Maman's been doing all of this to take God's throne away from him. And because Spawn is the one, as little old lady God called him, Maman knows he can't do that without controlling Spawn. And that's why he helped Cog in Hell. He needed to make sure Spawn wasn't controlling the Ninth Circle or he wouldn't have the influence over him he wanted. And finally, that idea of Wanda's ultra importance comes into play. Maman's first order of business with his new power over Spawn is to rid him of every memory regarding Wanda, which goes on and on and on. The idea is, as long as Spawn still has that one thing he cares about, regardless of his having moved on, he can't be controlled. So now we're back to more amnesia, more redefining this totally amorphous character, yet another new beginning for Al Simmons. And that's where this issue totally loses me. Hogwood is finding ways to tie up really old loose threads and get the mythology moving forward again. But as a personal story about a man back from hell trying to find his place in the world, it still doesn't work. Why is Spawn such a total jerk when he wakes up from his coma? I appreciate, understand, and enjoy reading about every other character here over Spawn. Nyx, Redeemer, even Maman. Maman is a cunning, brilliant adversary, even if his scheme is really hackneyed in places. But he is too good for our protagonist. At this point, the world is a little more interesting, but I can't get a handle at all on who Spawn is or why he does what he does, and neither, I think, can Hogwin. I appreciate the giant leap forward this issue takes the whole story, but Spawn himself is an actual pawn. He's a functional piece to be moved around a game board, and for the most part, that's all he's ever been. You know, I'm feeling a little more uncomfortable in this cape and chains today. Signed, Captain Logan.